Hey, what's up, everyone? Vaden Hoffman here. Today is Easter, April 12th, and I hope you guys are having a great Easter. If you're watching this video sooner or later, we are in the midst of obviously this coronavirus pandemic, and I want to film this video as some thoughts that I had. And before I get into the video of what I want to talk about, I want to preface first that this video is not intended in any way to downplay the severity of the pandemic. It's not intended in any way for you to say that this whole thing is fake or you shouldn't be concerned about it, because you should. It's real. People are dying and there's issues going on. But I feel like there's been a lot of fear being spread around about it, which is causing a lot of anxiety for people. And I just want to break down some information that I thought was useful. And if you think it's wrong, you can let me know. I could be wrong. I'm always open to that possibility. But I just, I look at everything in the news media talking about how deadly this virus is, and how it's just going to sweep the entire nation, the entire world, and infect everybody and kill everybody. And some research that I found is really showing that that's not really the truth. And once again, that doesn't mean that it's not serious. It doesn't mean like don't wear a mask or don't wear gloves. I mean, I feel like if you want to do those things, keep doing those things. Your primary goal is to protect yourself and to be safe, especially if you're somebody with a compromised immune system, or you're living with somebody with a compromised immune system. You should always do these things to be safe. So don't take this video as any way to say that, oh, this virus isn't nearly as bad as we think it is. I just want you to look at this as a different perspective, so you can watch this video and see, well, maybe it's not quite as contagious as they're making it out to be. It's amazing of what the media is trying to tell everybody. So I'm going to share my screen here and go over a few of these articles that I came across, and starting out with just some of the scare tactics, I guess. And I'm not trying to say that these websites are nefarious or trying to do things with untruth to them. They're trying to figure this all out as well here too. So this is something from the Jerusalem Post. It's something that you guys might have seen around if you watch CNN or MSNBC. This new study has found the novel coronavirus can spread about 4 meters, and it gives you talking about it being airborne, right? It can travel 13 feet in the air, new study finds, and that's the headline that you get from it. And so what this does is creates fear. It makes us think that if you get within 13 feet of somebody, you're going to get infected, right? That's kind of what you think when you says, wow, the coronavirus can travel 13 feet in the air. That's crazy. This other one here too, this a modeling showing how the particles spread in a grocery store. So this one is super subliminal too, because they use the example of a grocery store, which all of us have to go to, right? An essential business. We need food, but it just makes you think, oh shoot, when I'm in the grocery store, I need to be on the lookout and not be close to anybody. And even if somebody is 1 aisle away from me, I got to be careful of them because they're going to infect me. And once again, I'm not saying that you can't get infected. I'm saying is that look at the fear that's being pushed, and then we're going to contrast that with the reality that I'm seeing with the actual contagiousness of this virus. So, this model here, again, look at this picture. It shows the grocery store aisles, and it shows this poof of coronavirus just floating around. I saw this other one a couple of days ago too, that was, I think, from maybe the Telegraph or one of those papers in England. And it talked about how the coronavirus spreads between runners at a 4-meter distance. And it showed all these models of people walking side by side, walking staggered or running. And it just, once again, it's like, oh, now we can't even run with somebody else as a partner, or run staggered, or we have to be at least 4 meters apart when we run with someone, because this thing can spread this way. And it's really just pushing this fear. And once again, I'm not saying there's not a possibility of contagion. I'm just saying that compromise that with take that fear and look at the reality of what it is, and hopefully this will help suppress some of your anxiety. And the best way that I found to look at this, right? Like we don't really know how contagious how this thing is, right? On the surface, right? We look at in the United States how many cases that they have, but the problem is we don't really know how many people have had it, and we aren't comparing this to the whole world, the whole country, right? You don't know how many people came in contact with who, so you really have absolutely no idea when looking at the United States numbers or the world numbers to see how contagious this virus is, right? There's no way to scale it. You need a very closed area where you have X amount of people, and of those people, every single person gets tested, And then you can see from that how many of those people actually got the virus, how many of those people died from it. Now, this would be an incredibly inhumane thing to do on purpose, right? Like it would be a terrible thing to do, violating your Nuremberg codes, to go and put people into a room, 100 people into a room, and insert one person in there that has coronavirus and have them walk around and talk to people and have it a social gathering, and then have the scientists record how many people got sick after that and test everyone and quarantine them for 14 days. You'd never do that, right? You'd never do that. So it's impossible, you would think, to have these numbers as precise. Well, luckily, unluckily, I hate to say luckily because it was a travesty, but if you remember when the stories first started to come out about the coronavirus, we had the Diamond Princess cruise ship. See, this is very unique and anomaly because we actually have a situation to where we have a total number of people on board, right? So we have our total number. And then with that, they've tested 100% of the people on board. And then we have an exact number of confirmed cases. So it's really simple to be able to take these numbers and divide those confirmed cases by the total amount of people, and we get an infection rate, right? Well, that would seem, at least on the surface, like it would make sense. Now, obviously, there's going to be variables in that of how many people moved around the ship and this and that. But once again, as we're being told, look, this model shows how it spreads in a grocery store. This model shows how it can travel from 13 feet up in the air. There's another article here too that I wanted to show you guys that talked about how the coronavirus was found 17 feet away, right? 17 feet or 17 days, that's right. So the CDC says coronavirus RNA found in Princess cruise ship cabins for up to 17 days after the passengers left ship. So this is the perfect test study to see a closed environment where supposedly the RNA is found up to 17 days on the cabin. Now, once again, we don't know if that RNA is contagious, but this goes back to my initial point that they'll use articles like this found up to 17 days to drum up fear. Oh, dang. So this virus can live for 17 days. So when you go to the grocery store and you grab that grocery cart, if that hadn't been sanitized, that could have the coronavirus on it for 17 days, is what this article wants you to think, because they know most people only read headlines. And maybe that's true, but I'm trying to disprove that by saying, hey, if you have this closed area, even if you took the people who were infected and you quarantine them fairly instantly, but like we said, a lot of times there's a 2-week incubation period before people a lot of times start showing symptoms. So when people got on this ship, they were carrying the virus. Patient zero, right, which we'll talk about it in a sec. Patient zero, supposedly a person from Hong Kong, when he gets onto the ship, even if he wasn't showing immediate symptoms, he's spreading that virus for days and days and days. And just think for a second about a cruise ship, right? Cruise ships are tight quarters, tight living areas. Cruise ships are also, most people end up eating at buffets, right? I mean, there are restaurants there, but a lot of people eat at buffets. So you're talking a very close common area. People are grabbing the same serving spoons over and over what they're eating. So just imagine this patient zero, who goes onto this Diamond Princess cruise ship and has the virus on him. He goes, he eats, he touches a spoon to serve his food. He then eats his food, he uses his mouth, it goes to the dishwasher. The dishwasher touches things. The next person who grabbed that spoon, of all the things that he ate, they use that same spoon over and over. The next person does, the next person, then that person gets infected. This is how the virus could spread, or so we're told that the virus could spread. So what are the numbers of the Diamond Princess cruise ship, right? So there were 3,000, we go back here to Wikipedia here, this gives us some good information, plus I'll show you other sites too. Diamond Princess, had over 3,000, I believe 3,700, you can see right here, a total of 3,700 passengers on the ship. Now this is split up between crew and also guests as well too. So by the time it was all said and done, I believe there was about 700, right here, 712, stated that 712 of the 3,700 people on the Diamond Princess tested positive, or 19.2%. So think about that for a second. 19.2% infection rate on a closed vessel on an environment that is perfect for spread of a virus. As a matter of fact, there's actually a rule in the cruise ship industry, norovirus, a virus that's it's always on cruise ships, and it's an accepted principle that it will be on cruise ships. And actually, cruise ships have a statistical number that it's like, I don't know the number, but under 3%. If they're under 3% of norovirus infection, then they're safe to go out. If they're over that number, whatever that number is, then they have to dock and bring that number down. So cruise ships are already proven to be a prime area for the spread of virus. So you have basically the best real life petri dish going on this ship of 3,000, 700 people, and only 712 of them got infected. 19.2%. Now, once again, 19.2% is a decent number, but the way that the media has you thinking that, as we looked at those earlier models, it can spread 13 feet in the air, the RNA can live for 17 days, that in the grocery store, you see the simulation of how it spreads in the aisles. Maybe it's not that crazy contagious if only 19.2% actually got the virus, right? I mean, that's at least what I'm thinking. And so I'm going through this process and I'm thinking about, okay, how can I prove myself wrong on this? That's usually, I'll kind of come up with an initial hypothesis of like, wow, that's crazy. So there's only, just under 20% of the people who got infected on this ship. So how did that happen, right? Did they instantly quarantine the people off the ship? Like, okay, so let's go back to this patient zero, right? So supposedly patient zero was a man that came in from Hong Kong. But interesting fact is that this guy denies that he was even patient zero. And what I find really interesting with a lot of this too is this guy denies that he was patient zero because actually, and it's just one of the false information that's been coming out. And obviously a lot of things break fast. So I'm not necessarily saying that everybody is doing things with a negative agenda in mind. It could just be trying to break stories fast and you don't have all the right information. So this guy has been dubbed as the patient zero on this ship. The Hong Kong, I think, authorities said that he supposedly was coughing 3 days before he got on the ship. Well, in his own words, he says that he wasn't, that he didn't start to feel any symptoms until a couple days later when he was on the ship. So that's a couple days that he's on the ship at minimum, right? And then this is the other crazy thing with this too, is when you read this article here, right, and it talks, so this is directly from this guy, his wife, and I think it's his kids that he was vacationing with, none of them tested positive. I think about that and I'm like, and once again, do what you want to feel safe, but we're going around with masks on and gloves on, and dude, I'll wear masks and gloves too. Like, I want to be safe also. And so once again, balance this being safe with knowledge in your brain of the reality of what's going on. So we're going around with masks and gloves, and we got to keep away from each other, and we're changing the way that we live our society. Yet patient zero on this ship, his wife, who he shares a very close contact with in this cruise ship, doesn't test positive, right? That kind of doesn't really make sense. Check this out. This guy too, right? Rick Wright. Rick Wright was also on the cruise ship. This is his wife, Kathy Wright. They were on the Diamond Princess cruise ship as well. Check out this right here. Kathy Wright and Rick Wright sit with their masks aboard the flight from Japan to Travis Air Force Base, where the couple was quarantined before Rick tested positive for coronavirus. Before Rick tested positive, Kathy didn't test positive. Think about the spread. If you Google right now, is coronavirus airborne? There's like, I don't know. We don't know if it is. It could be. It could not be. We're not sure. It's so crazy right now. We don't know. If it's airborne, how could this couple sharing a small cabin on a cruise ship on vacation, how could she not get it? How could the guy from Hong Kong, his family, not get it? You're like, oh, maybe they wore the mask this whole time, right? Well, check this out. This is from NBC Bay Area, a video. Look, there they are right there. They're hanging out. This is on the boat here on the ship. Look at them. They're out to dinner together. This is all on the cruise ship. This was life. They lived life on the cruise ship normal, yet she didn't contract the virus. I look at that, I'm just like, how is that even possible? Right? How does that even possible when we look at stories where we see modeling of how the airborne virus spreads so fast? Yet there's only a 19% contagion rate on a closed vessel. Now, you might think of like, well, maybe they were great at quarantining the ship, right? Like maybe that's had to have been what it was, that they really quarantined this ship so good that this is how they stop the spread, right? Because that would be the idea of what we're doing right now with our kind of self-quarantine and stay home ordinances, is that we're all, you know, once they found out that some people were sick, they put them aside away, and then the spread stopped right then. That might make sense, but unfortunately, the ship had this guy come in here, Kentaro Iwato. He is a Japanese virologist and epidemiologist. He dealt with Ebola virus. He filmed this video after going on the Diamond cruise, and talked about how terrible the situations were from a quarantine standpoint. Just listen to what he has to say about the situation.
That's not my decision. That was not the way. So I said, well, I have to do it. I looked into the several places inside the ship, and the turned out that the cruise ship was completely inadequate in terms of
Inadequate.
the infection control. Uh, there was no distinction between the green zone, which is free of infection, and the red zone, which is potentially contaminated by virus.
So pause it right there just to look at that. He says it was completely inadequate in terms of infectious control. There was no distinction between the green zone and the red zone. So the red zone is where the infected people are at. The green zone is where the non-infected people are at. So what he's saying is that they basically just allowed passengers to go back and forth between the infected zone and non-infected zone, and crew members back and forth. So it seems like their quarantine really wasn't much of a quarantine at all.
So the people could come and go wearing a PPE, off PPE. Crews were just walking around, and the officers of Ministry of Health and Labor was walking around. DMAT people were walking around. Psychiatrists were walking around. And the people were eating on one place. People were wearing PPE and off PPE and eating.
So once again, talking about crew members, medical facilities, captains, all these people just cruising around the ship, some wearing PPE, some not wearing PPE, just no protocol on the ship for effective measures to control the quarantine.
Lunch with the gloves on, and just dealing with the smartphone with full PPE, so it was completely chaotic. And some crews had a fever. They went to the medical center while wearing an N95 mask, but he didn't have any protection between his room and the medical room. And the medical officer was not protecting herself, and she was very unhappy, saying that, well, she was already infected. I'm sure about that. So she was completely giving up protecting herself. Anyway.
So the medical person had giving up protecting herself. She said, oh, I've already been exposed to it, so I'm just not even going to wear my PPE. What about the next person that comes in that you test? If you're not going to wear PPE for that next person, if you have been exposed to it. I mean, I'm not trying to look at this and say this is all like their fault. I mean, obviously they dropped the ball on this, but the whole point of the video is to show that there was, as Dr. Iwato says, is that it was very poorly done from an infection control standpoint, yet only 19.2% of the people got infected. And then of that, so check this out. This is crazy too, because we look at the infection rate, which is important to look at, right? Once again here, that infection rate, 712, which is a big number. So now we look at like, okay, so that's good to know how many people died from this, right? How many people unfortunately passed away. And when we dig into the numbers, it's similar stuff to what we have seen from a lot of the mainstream media, the news that you've heard. I don't know if you guys had seen Deborah Birx from the CDC talk about how they're going to categorize people anybody who they suspect likely of dying from the coronavirus as it. So you're like, at least on this ship, right? On this ship, once again, 100% of the people were tested. So you have the only place is these ships, and I want to do another video about the USS Roosevelt and the other cruise ship as well. These are controlled areas where you have nobody coming in, nobody going out. You have 100% of the people tested on the ship. You have exact numbers of the amount of people divided by the amount of people that were infected, and then you can look at the death. So this is the truest numbers that we will see. This is actually the best death rate that we're going to be able to get, is by taking the amount of deaths that occurred on this cruise ship and dividing it by the case positive test, because that's what we're doing in the US right now all the time, right? You hear these deaths divided by case positive rates. So in the United States, it's like 20,000 deaths, and I think, 400,000 confirmed cases. So that's why we're getting this death rate of, I forget what that number comes to. It's like 3.6% or something like that. But as everybody will tell you, that's just death divided by confirmed testing. As we know, there's a bunch of people who aren't even getting tested who most likely have it, and the government admits this, right? The government admits this. So we have no way to know the true death rate of this virus, except for when we look at it on a cruise ship like this, because we have 100% testing, we have a number of confirmed cases, and we have deaths. So check this out. This is from USA Today. A third passenger has died after being quarantined for coronavirus on board the Princess Cruises Diamond Princess ship, which remained docked in Yokohama, Japan. The passenger, an 80-year-old Japanese man, died of pneumonia. This is from USA Today. The health ministry announced in a news release Sunday it was not confirmed that the passenger had coronavirus, but had been treated in the hospital after disembarking from the cruise ship. The headline: third Diamond Princess passenger, 80-year-old Japanese man, dies after coronavirus quarantine. There's something missing in here that if you read too fast, you won't catch it. But the important thing is it does not say this man tested positive. He's 80 and he died of pneumonia. That's actually fairly common. Now, he could have had it. We don't know. But once again, they tested everybody on this ship. And this gentleman would have been tested. And I could guarantee you it would read, if he had died from the coronavirus, if he had been tested positive, it would read like this. NHK previously reported that 2 other Japanese cruise passengers who died from the virus earlier in the week, 87-year-old man and an 84-year-old woman. So they tested positive. It says in the article they died testing positive. But the third person right here, he didn't test positive. But yet he's going to be recorded as a coronavirus death on this ship. Kind of makes you interested on how they're skewing these numbers, right? Kind of makes you interested on how they're putting these numbers together for us to think, this person died. So let's look at the actual death rate of the deaths on the ship and get the death rate from it. So at the bottom of the page here is probably one of the most important parts that we're going to look at here. So deaths. So this kind of breaks down all the different deaths here. 2 passengers, I'll read all these. 2 passengers died on February 20th. I'm not going to talk about if they tested positive or not. Either way, we go to the very last one, making the 12th person died. So 12 people passed away on this cruise ship. But like I said, we know for sure number 3 probably did not test positive, right? Because they didn't say in the article they tested positive. But let's even go with their 12 people number. And we're going to divide 12 by that 3,700 number, because that's the amount of people who were on the cruise ship, right? So that seems reasonable. We're going to take 12 people that died, because once again, I'm like a broken record here. This is the only time where we have 100% testing between crew and guests on the cruise ship, and we tested every single person. And we're going to be able to then take the 712. So the actual death rate would be the amount of people on the ship. We're going to go this 12 people divided by the 700, I believe, right? And 12, it was right up here, 712 that actually tested positive. So 12 divided by 712 is, can't see on my phone, a 1.6% death rate. 1.6% death rate. This is the best number you will ever find for an actual death rate from the coronavirus. And, right, and very important to note that, look right here, the demographics. So this is where it gets really interesting. The demographics, the average age of the crew was 36, while the average age of a passenger was 69 years old. And of these 712 infections, 145 occurred in the crew and 567 occurred with the passengers. Who's the prime age demographic that are passing away on these cruise ships? It's over 65, right? So this is an infection that happened in a closed area on the prime people who are most susceptible. I mean, I don't know how many of them have pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, but age-wise, prime age to unfortunately succumb to death from this virus. Yet the death rate is 1.6% death rate of people who got this virus. That's crazy. You don't get that in the media. And I'm just gonna close it with this because I'm about done with this video. Is once again, this isn't to tell you that it's not real. This isn't to tell you that it's not contagious. It is. Be safe out there. Be safe in everything that you do. I pray that you all be very safe. But I hope that you watch this video and it helps you lower your anxiety some. And look at this and say, instead of looking at these numbers that CNN and Fox News and MSNBC are putting out there and making you scared and everything's a breaking news and 740 people die in New York today, and you hear these numbers and you're like, everyone's getting it and everyone's dying and I'm never going to go anywhere and life's never going to be the same. Just take a breath and think about, okay, look at the numbers. In a closed area, less than 20% of the people in a closed area. We all live in an open area. Yeah, you might go to a store for a little bit, but after that, you're in the fresh air, you're walking around, but in a closed area, less than 20% of the people contracted it. And this is in a demographic of people over the age of 69 years old, or average age of 69 years old. And everyone who's passing away here, look at these numbers of people who are passing away. Unfortunately, passenger here, an elderly man, in their 70s and their 70s. I mean, unfortunately, this is a virus that keeps happening to older people, but of those people who got infected, and this is the only place, right? There'll be other ships as well too, but these ships are the only place where we can see an actual death rate, not a death by test positive case, what we see in the US, that 20,000 divided by 400,000, wherever we're at right now, because we know there's so many more people who have it. This is a closed sample. And we have a 1.6% death rate. And as we know, right, as we know that one of those people didn't even probably die from coronavirus, they didn't test positive, because they would have put that in the article, surely, right? They put the other 2 people died testing positive. So then if you take the 11 and you divide it by that 712, then all of a sudden the numbers drop down even to 1.5%. There's still risk there, of course. But let's all just calm down and lower that anxiety a little bit about the actual fear of this virus, and just take a deep breath. I pray that anybody who watches this video, that you have less anxiety. Stay safe and keep your eyes and ears open to the truth that's out there. Look forward to more videos, hopefully coming out soon. Like I said, I want to do one about the USS Roosevelt. That's another good sample size. There's also another Princess cruise. I think it's the Grand Princess as well. Breaking these ones down. I'd also love to talk about the aspect of the future of the vaccine for safety that's going to come out for this. There's so much going on. It's always breaking down. And I love doing this research and sharing it with you guys. So if you like this, share this video with people that need to watch this to lower their anxiety down to a point where they can get back and manage life and be able to handle things, yet still be careful and cautious in what they do. Guys, be safe out there.